In the midst of one of the worst economic crises in Sri Lanka's history, the country has been wooing the IMF for a bailout. We have just picked Lazard and Clifford Chance as advisors for the debt restructuring. This is the 17th time Sri Lanka has sought out the IMF since its first program in 1965. Since then, the country has entered into 9 other standby agreements and 6 extended facilities, and of these 16 programs, only 6 have been completed. Faced with the country's dire and debt-ridden state, many see an IMF program as a much-needed leg up. With me today is the former advisor to the Ministries of Finance and Foreign Affairs and Fulbright scholar at Harvard, who also read philosophy, politics and economics at Oxford, Daniel Alphonsus. Welcome to Srilanka Life. Let's talk, Daniel. Just to put things in perspective, we have no dollars, we have no rupees, we have no IMF bailout in sight. And the crisis right now is we have no fuel. Do you have a solution for this?
Well, I think the solution has been obvious for some decades now. What Sri Lanka needs to do is to allow market forces to work effectively. It needs to raise taxes so that the state has enough revenue to fund its commitments. And third, it needs to ensure that government expenditure is significantly utilized more productively rather than wasted on all sorts of white elephant projects and on a over-bloated public sector.
The IMF bailout, there doesn't seem to be anything in sight. We don't seem to have got our act together, even though we have appointed financial advisors. There's no repayment plan. We seem to be vacillating. Is that conclusion correct?
So if we look at the IMF program, there's 2 stages. First, there's an agreement between the government of Sri Lanka and the IMF staff. Now, there is some optimism that this can be concluded within the next few weeks, and that essentially sets the framework of the technical details of an IMF program. What measures does the government of Sri Lanka need to take in order to be eligible for board approval, which is the second stage. It's only upon board approval that the IMF can disperse funds or loans to Sri Lanka. Now, a condition for board approval is that Sri Lanka's debt is perceived to be sustainable in the long run. With respect to a staff level agreement, once that is in place, hopefully within the next few weeks, it may help us unlock bridge financing from bilateral and other creditors and partners as well.
We do need a program, whatever it may be. We need the money. How do we get that right?
In my view, the measures that are required in the long term are also measures that will assist in the short term. Essentially a restoration of the government's credibility, that it acknowledges that there is a serious problem. That seems to be the case now, unlike in the past. But then taking the necessary measures to really ensure that the 3 topics that I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, allowing market forces to function properly, increasing taxes to put public finance on a stable footing, and ensuring that expenditure is optimized properly. On the first point, I'd like to illustrate it with an example. Consider the case of the money printing that took place, which is one of the more proximate causes for the current crisis we're in. That would not have taken place probably if we had an independent central bank. And in order to have an independent central bank, we need to pass legislation, but also constitutional change. So Sri Lanka's problems are interlinked political and economic problems. And if we are serious about solving them today and for tomorrow, these are the measures we need to take.
How important is a national consensus in going forward with any program?
We need to have across the board, and when I say across the board, it's not only across the board of political parties, but other stakeholders in society, industry, the bureaucracy, media, and so on. A general understanding of the forces that shape economies and how they work, and come to a national consensus, as you put it, on the direction Sri Lanka should take within a broad framework. Of course, the details, there will always be differences. But whether we want to be a closed economy, whether we want to be an open economy, these fundamental things, I think there needs to be broad agreement on.
Do you think we will get the funding we really want?
The question is more a question of when. And the amount of pain we'll have to go through in that process. There are faster ways and less painful ways of doing that, and that is to act quickly. We've already delayed acting for a couple of years now. This problem people have been talking about for 3-4 years at the very least. But in fact, the measures that have been taken have only precipitated it. So if we act now, I think we can have a program in place potentially within 6 to 9, potentially 12 months. If we dilly-dally, it could take much longer. And Sri Lanka's debt profile is quite complex. The restructuring it is not a straightforward task. So we really need to act quickly and boldly.
So Daniel, let's hope what you say about acting fast and acting speedily to get ourselves out of this mess would work, because all we can do otherwise is pray and hope that things will turn out well. We are on 4 social media platforms. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn.
World of risks and obstacles. We are there to help you reach your goals. With 12 billion rupees worth of customer benefits in 2020 and a life insurance fund worth over 100 billion rupees. Our strength is your strength. You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Sri Lanka Life.